Dude, are people actually out there like starting brands without any money? Like, is that real?
Yeah, I guess that's something that we gotta find out for sure.
We're excited to sit down with you guys on this Starting a Clothing Brand from the Ground Up Masterclass. We brought together some amazing instructors that specialize in their respective fields, from sales, marketing, branding, social media, and much more. This video is definitely one of the first of its kind, and we're excited to put this together for you guys to truly help you move your brand and business forward. So if you guys are a new visitor to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now and turn on those post notifications to be alerted of associated videos that are going to be dropping right after this one. And more importantly, we created a resource guide that you guys could download and use, which is also going to be located in the descriptions down below. So over the next several minutes, you guys will be able to scrub through the chapters that are going to associate to where you are. So if a chapter doesn't seem like it's something that you need to do right now, it's okay. Just go ahead and scrub over to the next one. And we've also created chapter marks, which are going to come up in the video, and you guys can easily navigate to where you need to be so you guys can make the most of your time and efforts as you're browsing YouTube. We appreciate you guys for watching, and let's get started. Now, the very first thing we need to establish is the difference between having a business versus a side hustle. Now, over the last few years, I've shared, and I've been the person that started this, is like how to start a clothing line with less than $50. A lot of those videos were definitely created to help you start and build and create an income stream to help you start your business, but we never really covered the other side of it, and that's the reason why we need to start with a business plan. Now, a business plan is going to be there. It's going to be the thing that's really going to help guide your direction, as well as your finances, your marketing plan, and everything that's really involved with driving and starting a business. In past videos, I've shared information such as using a lean canvas business model, and that's a one-pager, which is essentially going to help you dictate where your product market will fit and kind of give you a really brief overview on how you can start this business and where you're going to be making money. Now, even though the lean canvas business model is a great tool if you're just getting started, if you're truly wanting to grow this from a side hustle to a full-time business, you're going to need to work on a business plan. And the business plan is essentially broken up into different segments. The very first part of the business plan being the executive summary. Now, the executive summary is where I'd encourage you guys to start, because sometimes it's really daunting to create a 30-page business plan on something that you're just starting to work on. So an executive summary is essentially breaking down all of the important notes that you need to truly start and grow this business. It could be about 5 pages, and it touches on the most important aspects, such as the mission, the vision, the purpose of the business, the marketing plan, the sales strategy, and the sales projections. Now, these are the things that you're going to need in order to establish what your business is, who does it serve, and more importantly, how does it make money, and how much money should you be making this year, next year, and the following year. At the very least, it should be a 3-year projection. And the reason that you want to write this executive summary is because you need to have a starting point into how you're going to be moving about your business or your brand, right? You also need to identify who the audience is for it. So over the next several minutes, we're going to be diving into some of these details, but just keep these things in mind. Now, when it comes to actually showing you guys how to write a business plan, there's a lot of videos out there, and there's a lot of pieces of information that we've included in the Ground Up Academy that'll guide you through writing the business plan. We also have some templates in there that you guys can use that are dedicated for apparel and manufacturing and more of the creative fields. So you guys can download those templates and start using them and writing your plan. So we give you guys essentially a foundation to get started on, so you don't have to do it from scratch. But in this video, and the purpose of this section is to help you really hone in on the important things that you truly need to think about as you begin writing this business plan. One of the key aspects to a business plan is the mission statement. Now, when I was first writing a business plan in college, I always thought this was very fluff and high-level stuff, right? I never really thought that a mission statement was that important. But as I come to learn over the years, the mission statement is perhaps the most crucial part of actually starting your business. It really sets the foundation and the roadmap for how you're going to navigate. It also communicates with your team and your customers on how you do business and the reason why you're in business. And more importantly, it's going to guide you in future directions and in future situations that you may encounter. You're always going to be using your mission statement as a sounding board to new ideas or opportunities, or perhaps things that you may be wondering if it's something that you should do or definitely not be associated with. So for example, the mission that we have here at From the Ground Up is that we bring clarity to business and we help entrepreneurs build brands that impact the world from the ground up. Now, that's essentially the mission that we have throughout our content, throughout the products, the education, and everything that we do online. It truly is the guiding star of what we try to do. And of course, it came with years of trying to develop that mission statement. It didn't come overnight, but we started with something. Now, the mission statement is your guiding star. It's what you're going to be truly reflecting on, what opportunities or things you should be doing, as well as the ways that you're going to communicate to your customers and to your team. Now, for us, with From the Ground Up, our mission statement was that it was to bring clarity to business and help entrepreneurs build brands that impact the world from the ground up. And as we started working on a product drop, we knew that we needed it to be educational as well as impactful in how we moved forward with the products that we were going to create. It couldn't be something that was just done for the sake of doing it. It had to have a purpose and a reason. And because of that, we knew that the products that needed to be brought forward were going to be things that brought clarity to business, to the life of an entrepreneur, and not only brought education, but also motivation. And that's the reason why our product line still relates to the mission as a company as a whole. The mission is still the guiding star to how we're going to move forward, even though we're going to educate through a different medium, which is fashion and planners and things that are going to help you on a day-to-day. So you may be consuming content right now on YouTube, or you may be a part of our academy, but now you're going to have a physical product line and a thing that will continue to remind you on a day-to-day basis why it is that you're starting and doing what you're doing. Another part of the business plan that's going to be key for you to truly focus on and think about is the goals that you're going to set for the next year, 2 years, and 3 years minimum. You heard that right, guys. You're going to have to plan for 3 years. Now, if you're watching this, chances are you're not really a planner, but this business plan will get you into the movement of starting to make plans and truly looking at yourself on a month-to-month, week-by-week basis on how close you're getting to those goals. So for us, as part of the FTGU merch line, we created goals that included over the next year, we want to be at 120,000 in revenue, which would break down to doing 10,000 in sales a month. The other part of the goal that we needed to have is it needed to be a low-touch option, meaning it couldn't be something that we were spending a lot of time on, but it had to be something that was super impactful to our community. It was something that brought value, that helped educate them, and more importantly, move them forward. So we're not just creating a product line to just go out there and print a bunch of slogans and designs. We're being very thoughtful into how we're moving about this because we want it to be a low-touch option so we can focus on the person wearing the products. And then it's easy to kind of create a one-year goal. A one-year plan is something that you can foresee because a year goes by really fast, right? But when you start to, expand that into 3 years, it could be a little bit convoluted and it might not make as much sense. But as long as you stick to the mission and to the purpose of your brand, you'll be able to work those goals again. So for us, the 3-year goal is for the brand to do over $1 million in revenue. And more importantly, expand the product collections to drop on a seasonal basis with an expanded product line. Now that means that we're not only going to focus on garments like t-shirts and planners, but we're going to expand into very specialized equipment and products that entrepreneurs and business owners need. So that becomes our business plan essentially. I mean, there's a lot of different details in there in terms of the marketing plan and things like that, which we're definitely going to be discussing throughout the course of this video. So you guys will have some insight into how we're moving forward with our brand, and you'll be able to see us build it in real time. And if you become a customer of ours, you'll be able to see that journey firsthand and truly get to experience what it is that we're creating. Now, to help you move the business plan to fruition, you're going to need a team. But before you start building a team, it's going to be key that you set structure to the processes and the things involved with the operation, and more importantly, identify the duties or responsibilities within each role. Now, if what I just said is a little confusing to you, let me break it down a bit. Now, the very first thing before you start building a team is to identify all the tasks associated with what it is that you're doing. Now, this means that to write down and list every single thing that you work on every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year. I want you guys to be super detailed in this. And the reason that you want to do this is because you're going to identify all of the tasks associated with the business, because the next thing that you want to do is you want to start to categorize some of these tasks. So let's say you're going to launch a product line. You know that to launch a product line, you need to take photography, right? You need to take photos, you might do some videos, you might do some editing work on Photoshop, you might work on some newsletters. There's a lot of tasks associated with launching a product line. So what you want to do is group every task into a role. So let's say that the product launch team is a role, right? And maybe it's somebody that has to be creative. You've identified that in order for you to build and grow your company, you need to step aside from some of the very nuanced things, such as taking those photos, editing those photos, putting out newsletters. And maybe you're the designer because that's your skill set. And now you can be focused on designing, and that person that you hire on can be focused on all of the things associated with launching a product. But you're going to do this for everything associated with the business, from ordering supplies to ordering samples to everything that's involved, logistics, shipping, literally every part of the business. You want to write down everything you're doing right now. And then you want to start to categorize those groups, bundle them into different roles. Now, the reason that you want to do this, I'll explain in a very short second, but for right now, start there. The next thing that you want to do is you want to identify everything that you're doing on a daily basis into 3 categories. Now, what I want you to do is take a piece of paper. Actually, can you give me a piece of paper? Cool. A regular sheet of paper, right? And you want to carry this sheet of paper everywhere you go on a daily basis. Now, you're going to take a piece of paper and you're going to fold it into 3 columns. On this left side, you're going to note down things I should not be doing. On the middle side, you're going to note down things that I could play a role in. And on this right side, you're going to note down things I should be focused on in order to grow the business. Now, that piece of paper you're going to carry around in your back pocket, in your backpack, in your tablet, wherever you are. You're going to carry it everywhere you go. And anytime you work on a task, you have to classify that task. Is this a task that you shouldn't be working on? So let's say you're sitting, you just got an order and now you're packaging it, you're putting the little packing slip, you're checking the quality of it before it goes out. That is a task that you should not be focused on. It's an important task in order for you to make the sale and get the money, but it's not a task that you should be doing. So you're going to write that on the left column. When it comes to the middle column, things that you could play a role in, these are going to be things that are going to require your expertise, but aren't necessarily the things that you need to start from A to Z. Now, this could be things like editing a photo, right? Photo editing. Maybe you have your brand style kind of set and you have that artistic vision, but taking the photos themselves, editing them, coordinating with models, and doing all the work associated with getting the photography for your brand shouldn't be something that you should be taking on yourself. It could be something that you play a role in because you're still leading that direction. And now on the right column is going to be the things that you need to focus on. These are the things that are going to drive your business and grow it. Now, these are tasks like if you have a brand and you're a designer that with a creative vision and every design that you create people want to buy, then you should spend more time designing products, less time taking the photos, and even no time at all in actually packaging and shipping it out. So with this list and this 3-column fold, I want you to write down everything that you're doing on a daily basis and truly identify and categorize them in those positions. By doing that, guys, you're going to have clarity into what it is that you truly need to be focused on and which roles are going to be crucial to actually hiring on first. And through that, you'll be able to identify which role the person will fit in. So if you know, hey, things that the middle column, things I can play a role in but still are critical for the business growth, maybe that column gets a person hired on. And then the things that you should not be doing is the most immediate thing that you can easily hire on because it's not something that's going to cost you much. It might be a virtual assistant, or it might be somebody that comes in part-time and just fulfills those orders. But you're no longer focusing on doing those things all yourself. Now, this is how you're going to transition from a solopreneur to a business owner. And then you're going to be able to focus on entrepreneurial things that are going to continue to help you move your brand and business forward. Equally important, before you hire your first person, you should really be thinking about setting structure to the processes that you have for that position. And the first person that you hire may help you in this process, and that's going to be great. But either way, you're going to need to create a process and a structure to everything that you do within your business. So by taking the photos from the packaging to the sales to whatever it is, you really need to start creating a structure around it that you can hire somebody on and they know what they're going to get themselves into on the first day of work. The last thing you want to do is just bring somebody on and say, hey, I need help with a bunch of different stuff, and now they're lost and they're wondering what their job position is and it's not working out and you guys just don't work out. And it's because you didn't identify what you really needed them to get done. Because the fact of the matter is, guys, every person that you hire on should only grow your bottom line. They shouldn't be draining from it, right? So don't think of hiring an employee as an investment that you're never going to see a return on. that employee should give you a return. It may not be in the first week, 2 weeks, month, 2 months, 3 months, and they start to really play a bigger role within your company. You'll see that return on your investment come to fruition. So always think about hiring people as an investment in your business, because it's going to help you create and generate more sales. It's going to help you create and generate relationships with your customers. And it's going to overall help you build a team that you need to move the mission and the business plan forward. Now, once you've identified the tasks that are needed and you start to bring people on, you'll see where their true strengths and their weaknesses are. So for us, when it came to launching the FTGU merch line, we realized that certain people had experience and the ability to create the marketing and the collateral that we needed, the photography to the videography to the messaging. So we put them into positions that they were going to excel at. Likewise, you guys need to be thinking about where are you going to fit the person in once they start working. So if they start working with you and you see, hey, this person's really good at this, I should give them more of those tasks, versus trying to pile them onto something that isn't going to be their natural fit or where they really feel comfortable. So for us, the way that we broke down our duties or responsibilities within the FTGU merch line is going to be the following. One of the DORs that we had was marketing, which included branding, social media, emails, campaign, and the official rollout. The next part of the DOR includes a product design. Now this includes things like creating the graphic, what the themes collection and the messaging is going to be, as well as the artwork placement, the production of it, the sampling. And as we dive into this process, you guys will see how it all came together. The next part is logistics, which includes the website design, which platforms to use, the inventory of it, the skewing, the organization of how we're going to be moving inventory between fulfillment centers. All of this are things that you need to think about, because that all happens behind the scenes as we start selling the product, which brings us into the sales. And in the sales part, we had to really identify price points, seasonality, trends, packages that we may create in order to move inventory. All of these are things that we're going to be diving into in detail over the next few minutes. We're excited as you learn hands-on from the people that were helping us do our own launch, that have helped us build this company and this business, that are mentors to us, and more importantly, that we look up to because they really truly specialize in these fields. So we're excited to get started. Let's jump right into this one. If the business plan helps you set your foundation for what it is you're going to be doing, the operations of the business is going to be the meat and bones of how to get it done. So in this chapter, we're going to be talking about a couple of different things that are going to help new entrepreneurs as well as established entrepreneurs truly help build and grow their brand. And we decided to break it apart into 2 sections, with the first section really being about the accounting and the basics of what you truly need to help establish and keep track of your finances, as well as remain in good standing with the IRS and the different laws that are associated with states. And in the second part, we're going to be diving into the raising of capital, as well as operationally, how are you going to sell your products? We begin by obtaining the business license. Now, the business license is going to be obtainable through the state that you're operating in. So for us, we're going to be getting it through Nevada. You could also choose to get it in different states depending on different tax purposes. Again, we're not certified to be able to give you any legal advice in this video, so we definitely advise you to contact a tax attorney or a lawyer to truly establish where your business should be from. But in our example and in our case, we established our business in Nevada. So to begin, we're going to start off with the business structure. And the business structure is going to be what you guys decide is best for your business, for your life, for your tax situation. All of the advice that we give in this chapter is not legal advice, so make sure you guys contact an attorney. Now, the business structure is essentially going to dictate how you're going to be formed in your state, meaning are you going to be an LLC? Are you a partnership? Are you a sole proprietor? All of these are questions that you're going to need to decide. Once you figure out how you're going to structure the business, the next thing is to get a business license. And depending on which state you go to, a lot of times every state has a government portal where you can do this on your own by simply registering the type of business that you mean to operate with. Now, on the low starting point, if you're on a budget and if you're just doing it yourself, a sole proprietor is definitely the lowest cost way to do it. A lot of times states offer the business license for free. Now, if you're an LLC, you're going to have to pay an added fee because now you're a company, and of course the state wants to get their nice cut of taxes on you. But nonetheless, choose the best option that's for you. Once you get the business license established, the next part is to register with the government. And you're going to do this through the IRS website, which is irs.gov. And right there, you can register for your EIN number. The EIN number is essentially your business social security number, which is going to be used in place of your personal social security number when it comes to opening up business bank accounts. which leads us into the business bank account option. Now, this part is something that a lot of entrepreneurs oftentimes make a huge mistake in, and I personally made a mistake in when I first got started, and that is in not opening up a business account that's separate from your personal finances. Now, the reason for this is going to compile as we talk in this conversation. You'll know the importance of why you should be doing this. But the business bank account is essentially going to be opened up under the business formation, the structure that you got, the business license that you got with the state, as well as the IRS paperwork you received. With those two things, you can open up a business bank account. And that business bank account is essentially going to be opened up with a couple dollars. Sometimes it's like a $50, $100 minimum deposit. But I encourage you guys to get an account under the business name. And the reason for that is because you want to have all your transactions going through the business account versus putting transactions in your personal, on some credit cards. You don't want that because then it becomes super complicated when it comes down to tax season, which we're going to be talking about a little in a moment. So make sure you open up a business bank account under your business name, which then allows you to get a sales and use tax permit. Now, the sales and use tax permit is essentially your reseller permit. A lot of times when you want to go buy wholesale, people will ask you for your sales and use tax permit. So make sure you register with your city or your county, wherever you're located. Google your city sales tax permit. And a lot of times you want to make sure you're on the government site, and you'll be able to enter in the business bank account information you opened, as well as the EIN numbers and your business license. And then you can finally register for that sales tax permit, which will allow you to buy wholesale from almost any company. If all these steps sound a little confusing, or maybe it's a lot of work, trust me guys, it's really not. You just got to go through each site and just fill in the boxes. But there's also resources such as LegalZoom and Rocket Lawyer, which will help you through this process. They do have an added fee though, so if you're on a budget, it's not that hard doing it on your own. Now that you established a business legally, as well as the structure and your bank accounts, the biggest thing that entrepreneurs need to know if you're watching this is the accounting portion of it. Because as you sell products and as you move inventory, at the end of each year, you have to report to the IRS what your profits and losses were. And if you're not accounting for it the right way out the gate, it's gonna take you weeks, hours, a lot of spent time trying to manage these things later on. So the biggest tip of advice that I mentioned earlier is to have a business bank account. And to go one step further is to have two different accounts in that bank account at a minimum. You want to have your operating account, which is where all of the inflows of your cash is going to go. And then you want to have a secondary checking account, which is going to be where you move the funds to pay for taxes or to just have separate from the operating account. And the reason for that, a lot of times, guys, is as a business, you can quickly get scammed. You lose a debit card, something happens, and they put a freeze on the operating account. You don't want the freeze to happen to all of your funds in your business account. Then you don't have access to it. So you always want to make sure you're moving funds between operating to that secondary checking account and then paying out your taxes or payroll from that secondary bank account. So at the very minimum, have two checking accounts open with every bank account, an incoming and an outgoing checking account at the very minimum. So once you have those business bank accounts established, every transaction that you do for the business has to go through those accounts. Don't go using your personal debit card or your Visa credit card anymore. You want to put it all in the business, especially if you're an LLC or you're incorporated as a corporation. You want everything to be separated from your personal finances to the business finances. That way you have that corporate protection that LLCs and corporations have. So once you do that, the next step is in truly making sure that you're printing out every monthly statement. I know this is kind of redundant, right? But the secondary thing that you want to do is make sure you're receiving e-statements, all right? Don't get those paper ones that you lose and then you have to scan later on. Just get the e-statements. Every month you want to go into the bank account and you want to see your statements, see what the incoming, outgoing expenses were, and then you want to save that into a Google Drive. Now, you want to organize the Google Drive folders by year. So if it's 2021, you do 2021, and then you organize each statement by month. So it'll be January, February, March, April, and so on. You want to upload the statements into the corresponding month. That way, you're keeping all of your business transactions in each month. So if you're just getting started, at the end of the year, what's going to happen is you're going to bring all of your statements to the accountant. And now that you've organized it by month, you simply print them out or just give them access to those statements through the Google Drive. And now they can do your accounting a lot quicker than you having to go back and provide them all this information. If you do it while you're actively working the business, it not only helps you organize each statement into each month, but it allows you to truly reflect on the money that you're bringing in and the money that is going out. So always make sure you're keeping an eye on those bank statements and you're keeping an eye on every transaction that's going in and out of your business. Not only does this method keep you in good standing with the IRS, it will also help you consolidate those quarterly tax returns that the wholesale license will require from you. And in addition to those statements, you're also going to need to have the inventory organized, which we're going to be speaking on more on the inventory section. But for now, just make sure you're coming into this practice where you guys are organizing every statement into each month. And then you create a new folder for every receipt, right? So every receipt that you have for the business as a transaction that you did. So if you bought some supplies from a vendor in downtown LA, grab that receipt, scan it in, upload it to the corresponding months under the receipt folder. And now you'll be better protected when it comes to any future audit that you may have. You need to be able to keep track of every single transaction that you do in person as well as online. And using the cloud such as Google Drive is a great place to start. Now, some high-level tax tips is hire a bookkeeper and a personal accountant that's going to be organizing and managing your business. The reason for this is because it takes a lot of time to do all of the monthly reporting. If you have payroll, once you start organizing and hiring employees, doing payroll, submitting the taxes to the state, to the federal side, takes a lot of time. So hand off the work, but as long as you start with this structure, you'll easily be able to add them to those folders and they could easily manage it. And at least you're in a good rhythm of what to expect. You know what's coming in, you know what's going out, and you're that much more prepared for what's to come. It's also key that the accountant at the very minimum provides you with a quarterly statement of your performance of the business. What this means is like, what is the true profit and loss? What's the balance sheet? How are the cash flows looking? All of these statements are going to be key for you to understand the true health of your business. Just because you're making good money doesn't mean that you're actually keeping it, or how does keeping that money get then reinvested into growing the business? A lot of this stuff are things that you're going to have to be looking at an ongoing basis, and at the very minimum, you should have a quarterly report that truly breaks down where your business is right now and where you're going to be heading into next quarter if you don't make some changes. By keeping track of your finances on a monthly and quarterly basis, you'll also be able to make decisions on how you can reinvest some of the profits so you don't have to get taxed at the federal level. Meaning, if you have a profit of, let's say, $20,000 in a quarter and you know that it's going to spill over into the new year eventually, then maybe you should consider purchasing some pieces of equipment for the business. Maybe it's a vehicle, maybe it's a down payment on a new location. These are all questions that you need to make before the year ends, because then you have a profit and there's nothing that you can do about it, and then you have to pay taxes on that. So either way, you're paying taxes throughout the entire year. So why not help reinvest those profits that you're making into the business versus just giving it out to the government for the sake of giving it to them? Eventually, it's going to go to them. Everything goes back. If you're doing your paperwork right, you're going to be paying your taxes regularly. This isn't any kind of scam that you're doing, but buying equipment, reinvesting your profits into growing the business is key, especially as you're just getting started. Now, for those of you guys that are watching and are saying, okay, I have all this, I've been doing this, how do I grow my brand? The next part in growing is going to be about having the right funding and the right cash reserves to be able to invest into your growth. So I want to introduce you guys to Kevin Raiford, who's my personal mentor. He has a business background in management with HP and some amazing companies, as well as a graduate of the Wharton School of Business. So if you guys don't know, that's one of the most elite business schools in the nation, in the country, perhaps the world. So this guy really knows what he's talking about when it comes to financing, capital investment, and truly working to build the finances to scale your brand. So I know you guys will take a lot of resources away from him as well as information. So make sure you're ready to take some notes, and let's get into that.
Hello, I'm Kevin Raiford, Professor Kevin Raiford to a lot of people. My background is in finance and marketing, undergraduate degree, University of Pennsylvania, the Wharton School, and my graduate work at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I also run Nevada Grow, which is a venture fund that helps small businesses grow in the state of Nevada. I also work for the SBA and help do small business consulting. And so basically what I'm here to do is help you get acclimated and help you get some information about what you want to do to grow your business. I've worked for some major companies, Whole Foods, Snapple, Johnson & Johnson, HP. All those companies bought and sold companies or got bought. So the key thing is that hopefully what I tell you will be insightful. And like I said, that's my background. My most recent position was in Silicon Valley. So I'm going to give you a venture capital overview from the Silicon Valley world. So hopefully that'll be helpful, and please enjoy. For those of you guys that are wondering how you can get funding, you want to make sure that you have your financial paperwork in order. You may want to go to a local bank or even get a credit card. But before you do that, make sure that you understand how much money you have in the bank, how much money you can spend. If you only have $5,000 in savings, be prepared to say, hey, this is how much money I have, but I'm really a hard worker. And somebody's going to work with you. I mean, there's a lot of banks, there's a lot of local lenders, there's a lot of small community development agencies that'll give you funding. And so don't worry about it if you don't have a lot of money or you don't even have a great credit history. People are going to work with you. They really want to give you the money. They really want to see you succeed. So I would say, start getting your paperwork in order. Just knowing what your FICO score is, knowing your credit situation, knowing what bills you have upcoming, knowing how much time you can devote to maybe work a part-time job, but not losing the time that you want to dedicate to your own personal job. So the key thing is, if you're starting a company right now, look at your financial situation, be honest with yourself. Look at how much money you have. It's $1,000, $5,000, that's fine. $500, that's fine. But look at what you have, and then you can go to a bank and say, here's my situation. Can somebody work with me? And yes, the answer is always going to be yes, but this is what we need. And so you'll be successful if you have just $50 in your pocket sometimes, getting a nice little bank loan to get you started, even if it's with a credit card. If you're looking for a bank that'll work with you, first place you want to go to is the Small Business Administration, SBA.gov website. There you'll see a lot of lenders who pride themselves on being SBA lenders, which is the Small Business Administration. And they're going to work with you, especially if you're a young, aspiring entrepreneur with not a lot of experience and not a lot of money. Those banks are here to help, and they will get funding from the SBA to really provide collateral. So that way, if you might be a risky client, it won't really impact the bank all that much because the SBA is going to give them collateral to back up your loan. And so don't be ashamed to say, hey, I don't have a lot of money. I'm really trying to start my company. I really don't have that much experience, but I'm a hard worker. And you can get some financing to at least get your first order, your first products, and get them out there on the market. What I would always advise entrepreneurs, before you ask friends or family or anyone in your circle for money, is to have your expectations and your visions laid out, not just in your head, but on paper. This is what I plan on selling. This is how much it costs me to make or sell this product. This is how long it takes me to sell this product. This is how much the product is going to cost, and this is how much the product is going to retail for, or if you're going to sell it online, it's the price the customers are going to pay. Then let them know what your margins are going to be. This is my profit. Now, I got fixed costs. I got to pay back these fixed costs before I can pay you a dime. So here's what I'm going to say is that I need $1,000 from you. I'll give you $5,000 at the end of the year. And then if they go, okay, that's fine, then you got a partner who's going to support you. But be very specific, be very quantitative. If you borrow $10,000, I'll give you $12,000 back in 9 months. Is that okay? Have a handshake and put that in writing. But be very clear with what you're doing, what the timelines are going to be, how much money you need, what you're going to use the money for, and when you're going to pay them back. And at least that way, if they agree to it, you're fine. And it's cool if you can pay them back sooner or pay them back even more. That way, when it's time for you to do your re-up, they go, wow, this is worth it. I'm making a better return on you than I am at a bank. So people want to see you be successful. That's what you got to remember. Be an optimist. People want to see you be successful. And of course, they want their money back. But the key thing is just go hard, keep grinding, but be legit. Be upfront and tell people what they're going to get their money back, how much they need from you, and what you're going to spend the money on. And periodically, give them some updates or break them off a little piece of your product. Here's the shirts that we were making. Here's 2 for you and your family. And then they'll feel great that trying to help them out. So I would always say be upfront with the dollars and be upfront with what you're doing, and always check in, and you're going to be successful. Venture capital is very interesting, and so there's really no short, fast, one-size-fits-all answer. Now, I'll give you some insight on venture capital from Silicon Valley. Like I said before, I used to work in Palo or Shallow Alto, where money was never an option. So when you go to pitch your deal, don't worry about the money. They have the money. Now, the challenge is going to be is they want a return. Some venture capitalists, they only see about a 1 out of 2,000 success rate. 1 out of 2,000. So be careful. So they're going to want a huge return on investment. So if they give you $1 million, they're going to want, 200 million. They're going to hopefully hope that you get to be a $1 billion company. And that's real talk. So the key thing is some people, they've got a 1 out of 25 rate of success. So they're not going to be pressing you as much. Some have about, who knows, maybe like a 1 in 10 success rate of 10%. So the key thing is, it all depends on which venture capital house you're going to visit. Now that being the case is, know what your goals are. Be prepared to deal with that. Now, people who want these huge rate of return, they don't care what they invest in. They're totally agnostic. They don't care whether it's a brothel or a daycare center. They want their money. And so going with that mentality. So don't think, oh, if I tell this sad story about how I met my husband at a dental office and we saw these donuts and then we have a donut shop and we're going to call it after our first daughter's name. They don't want to hear that story. They want to hear how many donuts you can sell, what that turnaround rate's going to be, what the profit's going to be, what the return on investment's going to be, who's going to be a part of your team, and how you can make money off of those donuts. So, it might be a touching story, but leave those at home. The key thing is that make sure you can show that you're going to make a lot of money for these people, and that's really what it's all about sometimes. They're very agnostic. They just want their return. They want it as soon as possible, as much as possible. But do your research. Some venture capitalists, they might have lower rate of return requirements. Some are extremely high, like I mentioned. They're going to give you, pretty clear deal sheets. But before you sign them, make sure you're comfortable with that before you end up signing your life away. Getting just your deal to be heard is a challenge. Now, I'm giving you the Silicon Valley background. So getting your deal to be heard is always going to be a challenge. So if you send an email, it's not going to get read, 99% chance it won't even get read. So what you want to do is you want to actually be knocking on doors, go to these mixers, go to these events. Venture capitalists are always at these events, digital MBA, those kind of activities. And so what you want to do is everybody you see, start chatting them up. You don't know who's going to be the admin. You don't know who the venture capital person is. You can go on LinkedIn, but you still might not be able to match the face with the profile. So I sat on a lot of venture boards. And so people would ask me questions about, Kevin, what deal should I fund? They wanted my background being at HP and being in tech. So I would go to these meetings and people would ask me, so Kevin, I see your name tag. What do you do? And I would tell them all the time, I bag groceries at Whole Foods. And I'll go, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. How'd you get here? Well, a buddy of mine invited me, but I'd love to hear your idea. I hear you have a good idea that you want to pitch. No, that's okay. We'll go ask somebody else. But really, by doing that, they just shut their door on themselves because I want to hear your deal. And you always want to make sure you're nice to everybody who you run into. So once you get into a venture capital meeting or a networking event, tell everybody about your deal. Don't worry about somebody stealing your idea. No one's here to steal your idea. What they want to do is they want to see if you're a cool person, can they support you, and can they back you? And then they're going to give you their card. Then you send an email. If you just send an email or just send a text message without any context, it's not going to get read. But the key thing too is that you want to make sure you meet a lot of people, get a lot of traction, because people with a lot of money, even these VCs that sit on top of the presidents or the senior vice presidents, they want other people's opinions, but it's always going to be their main factor is that they're the decision maker. So make sure anybody you can talk to that can say, hey, I champion this person, or I'll vouch for this guy, I vouch for this lady, I vouch for this couple. That's what's going to be huge because venture capitalists see Stanford graduates every day pitching them ideas. And so this is in shallow alto, like I mentioned before. Now you got students from Berkeley, Harvard, MIT, Oxford, pitching them ideas every day. So just being smart is not going to do it. Just having that paper, that degree is not going to do it. But show them that you're very hardworking and talk to everybody you can. Get 100 people to say, you know what, this idea is really cool. And most importantly, I buy into this person. So always make sure anybody you run into, you have a great idea, especially we're in Silicon Valley or any place where we have venture capital, Austin, or over in the Boston area or Research Triangle. Talk to everybody. Don't worry about people stealing your ideas. They're not going to do that. But put everything on paper, in your desk, but also to have things in your mind and always have your elevator pitch ready to pitch your idea and get ready to make a lot of money. It's always good to have a good elevator pitch, and what that's going to incorporate is just, this is my product. This is how much it's going to cost me. This is how much I can sell it for, or my service, what it costs me to produce it, but also too what it's going to sell for and how many units I can sell quickly. And then you want to go into a little bit of the how and the why at the very end. But the main thing I would say, have an elevator pitch. Hey, I've got these widgets. They cost me 20 cents to make. I can sell them for $18. Kids are going to buy them. They're going to get so lit. It's going to be so hyped. Wait till you see what I'm doing. And then it goes, okay, fine. That's a huge margin. Can I get in? How do you do it? Can you show them the how? And then I'm going to go, why you? Because I'm the best. I work hard. I'm a grinder. I sleep 3 hours a day. All that kind of stuff. I mean, that's what people want to hear. So give them the elevator pitch to tell them what it is, what your profit margin is going to be, and why you're the right person to bring that to fruition. When it comes to raising funding and financing, just think about the motives of people who you're pitching. When I first started, I was 21 years old and worked for a big pharmaceutical company. And we would have in-house venture capital pitches because you only have a certain amount of money to bring a drug to market. And so if you can only bring 4 drugs to market, you're really pitching the president inside the company about what you should bring to market. Now, you got to see what his or her motives are for that 1 year to see what you're going to bring to market. So, for a pharmaceutical company, you might have one drug that says, you know what, we can make $1 billion on this drug in 5 years. Well, they might say, well, you know, that takes too long. Well, this one is only take 2 years and may make it $300 million. Okay, well, that might be what they want. Or this drug will really save the lives of children. You would hope they would say, let's pick the one that saves the lives of children, regardless of how much money it's going to make. However, that might not be always the case. So be very careful. Understand the motive about who you're pitching. If they're old, they may want their money sooner. If they're young and they want to, start, stocking up their chips, racks on racks, I guess, they may be saying, you know what, I don't mind if I get my money back in 7 years. But be careful to decide who you're pitching, because whoever you're going to pitch, they've got different motives, and understand those motives. And if they're very philanthropic and they want to care about animals or the environment, then lead with that pitch. But do your research and find out who you're pitching, because not everybody cares about a long-term investment. Some people want their money tomorrow. Some people don't want their money for years upon years. And some people, they care about the environment, they care about kids, they care about animals. And so they may be like, hey, I want to invest in you because I like what you're doing. So always understand the motivation behind who you're pitching and whether they're going to want to fund you. So what I want you guys to understand is that when you start a business, do something that's going to break a mold or break a paradigm. And so you always hear about a time, supply and demand. And so there's a little chart that shows, dollars and quantity. And so what makes it simple, and it's going to be very simple, and so it's pretty obvious that 9 times out of 10, the higher the price is, the lower the product gets bought. And so that's why, this is the demand curve right there, that's a D. And if you're selling something, the higher you can charge, the more you actually want to make. However, equilibrium, people say, is always right here, where supply meets demand. But what I would encourage you to do is think outside the box. You got a company like Supreme, right? Sometimes for them, it's the opposite. The higher they charge, the more people demand their product. So think about something that you think can make your demand curve surprisingly be upward sloping. And that's something where I would encourage people. You guys can do it. With TikTok, put things out there, charge a higher price, and you might be able to sell more of that quantity. So for a lot of luxury products, or even it could be a beverage. I mean, think about if you're going to go get a beverage. Remember, beverages are not food, they're fashion. So people want to see what you're drinking. And I live in Las Vegas, so people want to say, okay, wow, if this bottle is priced at $40, I don't want that. But it's $400. Now you got me thinking. So a lot of beverages, a lot of clothing items, people really want to pay more. So the higher you charge sometimes, the higher your demand. So think about creating a real big critical mass of people who want your product, who are buying into what you're doing. And then surprisingly, I don't care if it's plants or rugs or couches, if you charge more, people are going to want it because they believe that it's special, it's more luxury, and the quantities are limited. So I would look for things where you can say, hey, I'm going to put some solid branding behind it, do a cool TikTok video, get a couple influencers to be an influencer yourself, and charge a decent price and make a lot of money, because really you don't need to cut your prices because people are willing to pay if they feel it's worth the product, for the product. A lot of times people watch shows like Shark Tank and they wonder where these valuations come from, or what they're going to do with yourself, or should I take this money, should I take the money? What are their motivations? Always consider what you're worth and what your company's worth. Now the key thing is that go in with a lot of self-esteem, go in very positive, go in very energetic. I mean, the saying is true. If you ask for money, you're going to get advice. If you ask for advice, then you'll get the money. So the key thing is, if you think you've got $1 million company or $1 million idea, right? And so the sharks are going to see that, and they're going to say, okay, I'll give you $100,000 for 10% of your company. Now what you want to say immediately is, okay, so you know the math, they know you know the math, $100,000 is 10% of $1 million company. However, there's always room to negotiate. Try to tell them, you know what, this is a $2 million company, it's a $4 million company. And that's easy number to do, because if you say a $2 million company, they owe you what? $200,000. And you're going to tell them, you know what, I might say, you know what, I want more control over my company. So you give me $100,000, it's really a $2 million company. That's going to get you 5% of my company. It's not going to get you 10%. But you said, I know what I said, but just come on the stage and we're getting ready to blow up, I know I can get more. So keep it something simple for that kind of math. But $100,000 means it's $1 million company, and $100,000 gets you 10% of that company. $100,000 gets you 5% of a $2 million company, and $200,000 gets you 10% of a $2 million company. If you want to start low and just get a feel for how the math works. So for example, if I know I've got $10,000 and I'm going to have sales of $100,000. But I know that in order for me to hit these sales, I need additional funding so that I can buy my products. Then I may ask for another $10,000, and whoever gives me $10,000, now they would own 10% of my company if it's valued at $100,000. And what I'll do is I'll offer them, remember, offer them a perk. So if they give you $10,000, you might say, okay, I'll give you your money back, but also too, you own 10% of my company. So you're giving them back their original investment, and they'll own 10% of your company. And you might even want to give them, an item or some clothing garments if it's a clothing company, just so they want to keep and doing your re-up. Because the key thing is, you want 3 to 4 layers of financing. You don't want this to go once and to be done. You want to keep growing. So people get in the beginning, they're going to get more. Then as your company gets bigger, $100,000 might only get somebody 1% of your company. So the key thing is that make sure you have your re-up, but early people are going to want a large amount of your company because they're coming in as first stage investors. So if I were to look at your early financing, and just to keep it pretty simple, if you've got a $100,000 company and you just know you need to raise $10,000, so $10,000 gets somebody 10% of your company. Okay? Now, you've already been able to use that money, you've actually sold your product, and so a year later, your company is worth $500,000. People are like, wow, this company's blown up. So now somebody says, you know what, I want a part of your company. How much do you want? I want 10% of your company. Well, 10% of your company, from that perspective, it's not going to be the same, apples to apples. So 10% of, $50,000 would get you 10% of the company. And so the key thing is that you want to make sure people who come in later, but also too, you may want to charge a premium. So with that case saying, you know what, I want a longer payback period because we're trying to go to $1 million company or a $2 million company. So if you give me $50,000, that might take 4 or 5 years to get paid back, and then you'll still get that part of the company, but you won't get your money back as soon as you wanted to before, because now we're trying to grow our company exponentially. And people in the late stages, they know that it might be an IPO coming down the road. And so an IPO, initial public offering, which means they're going to get really paid, could be selling stock. That'll come later. They're willing to wait 5 to 7 years now for that payback period. For the $50,000 example, to get 10% of a $500,000 company, they're going to look at what they could have spent that money on. So the key thing is, the longer the payback period, the more you better be able to deliver. Because if I'm getting $50,000, I could buy a car with that right now and get instant satisfaction. So the key thing is that the more money people give you, the more they're going to want that money back sooner. However, if you show that you're going to be more certain giving them back that money, then it makes it a little bit easier. But I would say right now, if you're going to start a company and you really do believe that you have $1 million idea, then I would start asking people for, okay, the first series, I'm going to take only people who are willing to give me $100,000. Okay? And I'm going to take maybe 2 or 3 of those. Then the next time for the re-up, I'm going to take people who are going to give me $200,000. And maybe they make 2 or 3 of those. And then the key thing is that you're not running a Ponzi scheme. So you want to make sure people get the money back and you're actually doing those sales. A Ponzi scheme is, of course, taking money from one group of investors, then paying people back in the future by getting money from future investors. And that's something that you don't want to do because that, you can catch a case over that, right? Bernie Madoff. But the key thing is that, rest in peace, Bernie Madoff. So I don't be talking bad about the dead. It's just a matter of, you got to be careful when it comes to kind of situations because a Ponzi scheme gets you in trouble. But the key thing is that if you want to get early investors, start with something like pretty small. You got $1 million company. I would start off with $100,000 investors, maybe 2 or 3 of those just to cover your risk if you can. Now the challenge is if you don't have enough money, you might have to seek other sources. But I would start off with people give $100,000. That way they each get 10% of that of your company. Don't do more than 3 or 4 because you still want to own at least 50% of your company, or hopefully 60% of your company, and that way you still control your company and you still are spreading out the risk and not having to lose all your upfront investment. One thing I would like to just share with you, and I just always bring in seasonality, and so whenever I look at a good business plan, I tell people all the time, give me your seasonality, and so I go, well, Nah, I just take my yearly sales and divide it by 12 months. You're going to get a no every single time. Always factor in seasonality, January through December, right? And so if you're going to be selling snow cones, right, low in January, peak in the summertime, and then down in December. I don't care if you're selling paper towels to schools. Well, if paper towels to schools, then I would think that in the months where school is going to be in, I'll be selling more paper towels, right? So that'll be, when I get down to August, September, October, right? And then, then it might trickle down. And then when school gets out in May or June, I won't be selling any paper towels. But the key thing I'm saying is that every business has seasonality. So don't ever come and say, well, no, my business is totally, I divided by 12. Even if you're in banking or doing taxes, you're going to have seasonality, whether they appear early, like during tax time, or always make sure you build some seasonality into your business and be prepared to deal with having money at certain times and having to invest money in your company at different times. When it comes to your cash flow, always make sure you have enough cash on hand to take advantage of situations. In my background at HP, I remember, I'm dating myself, but I remember when DVD burners were first started to get put into computers and CD burners. And so I'm like telling our factory, buy as many as we possibly can. We're HP, buy every single one on the planet. Who is not going to want a computer that can burn DVDs and burn CDs? And so we're just finding everything we can. But fortunately, HP had the money to do that. So when you come to your company, don't go bare bones. If you get a deal, take it. So I would always say, at least 3 or 4 months before you need your money, start stocking your chips. Because you're going to find somebody who's going to offer you a great deal. And so basically, you're going to have your money here, and then the deal's not going to come to here. But make sure you can bridge that gap with the cash you have on hand and take advantage of that. And then something that's not going to expire or it's not going to spoil, always have money to be able to buy that. When it comes to technology or a great product is going to sell maybe 4 or 5 months down the road, buy as many as you can. And then people who are your competitors, make them buy from you. But there's always a chance to always stack your chips up. Try to have at least 4 or 5 months of money on hand to take advantage of some great deals. If you enjoyed this kind of discussion, I would reach out to me or my team at nvgrow.org. That's nvgrow.org. Or feel free to go to your local small business administration, and they have people who think the same way. Also, too, you can go to sba.gov. Now, what I want to leave you with is this. Always make sure you're being true to yourself. The money is going to come. It's not that hard. There's still money out there. There's still a lot of great opportunities to take advantage of. Just make sure that you are who you are. If you're gangster, be gangster. If you're not, don't. But the key thing is that people are going to see that you're legitimate, you're hardworking, stay on your grind, and there's money out there. And I would always encourage you to keep on trying. Don't give up. Don't take no for an answer. And don't expect success the very first time. All the top film producers have made bad movies in their first 3 rounds, but then they go and win Academy Awards. So don't think success is going to come overnight, but keep on going hard. You're going to be awesome. I'm in your corner. Please stay in touch.
Now, if you're looking to raise a round of funding to help launch your brand, just make sure that you're looking into the business plan and you're truly laying out how the money is going to be used. Investors want to know how they're going to get a return on their investment, so it's key that you truly consider that portion. Now, you may not know, but raising a round of funding may take longer than you think. There's a lot of pitching, there's a lot of people going back and forth as to why it wouldn't work. Now, the best way to attract investors or anyone else that you want to be a part of your business is to show that you have a proof of concept. Now, a proof of concept is essentially proving the idea that you have. And it doesn't have to take thousands of dollars to show that. One of the easiest and low-cost way to do it is to actually start an online store. Now, when it came to us launching the FTGU merch that included the planner, the stationery, and all the other products that we have, we really had 2 options, and the team was torn about which option to go to. Now, the first option that you have is to do a low-cost online store with a version of WordPress. And essentially, WordPress is one of the largest online platforms for e-commerce stores, a lot of different websites. When it came to the lowest cost option, using WordPress is definitely the way to go. Now, WordPress is an online website building platform that's not just for e-commerce. It actually allows you to build almost any kind of website that you can imagine. And most websites are really built on this platform. But when it comes to creating an e-commerce store on WordPress, it could be a little tricky to navigate, which is where a service provider such as Hostinger is a great option and solution for this. Now, Hostinger partnered with us on this video to help raise awareness of their offering. And one of the key things that I really like about Hostinger is the fact that they have an easy to use dashboard. Now, with that dashboard, you're easily able to plug in WordPress and all the associated apps to help you launch an online store. Now, without a platform like Hostinger, it definitely becomes something where you have to kind of piece things around and try to find where you're going to host a WordPress platform, how it integrates to WordPress, how you're going to get WooCommerce installed. There's a lot of logistics when launching an e-commerce store on WordPress that may not be as easy to the beginner, but Hostinger definitely makes it a lot easier. Now, best of all, a lot of their hosting plans start at just $3 a month, and since we collaborated with them on this video, by using John at checkout or using the links in the description down below, you guys will be able to get a plan for the low. So make sure you guys go check that out. It's definitely going to help those that are on a budget to prove that proof of concept. Now, the other option that we have to launching an e-commerce store is an out-of-the-box solution. And what this means is a platform that has everything all in one, where you don't have to integrate third-party platforms to build your website on. It just comes all included. And for this, we're looking into BigCommerce. And BigCommerce is an out-of-the-box solution that truly allows you to not just start, but scale your brand internationally. And they do this by not having any third-party merchant processing fees. Now, this is a big deal when it comes to you selling in different markets that may not have simple service providers. You might have to plug into other countries' service providers. BigCommerce doesn't charge any transaction fees on that. Another good reason we were considering BigCommerce is their ability to connect to third-party platforms such as Walmart, Amazon, Etsy, Instagram, Facebook. They literally connect to almost any platform to help you distribute your products really easily. Since BigCommerce partnered with us on this video, by using the links in the description down below, you guys will be able to get a 30-day free trial, no risk. You guys can test it out for yourself to see if it's a really good fit between you and your brand. But nonetheless, selecting an online service provider, an online platform to help put your products up online and start selling it is going to be the key to actually getting investors or just moving your brand forward. Don't get stuck on not having the funds to actually launch the brand. Launch the product online, go out and sell it, which really leads us into the marketing process.
My name is Jason Hill. I'm 22 years old. I'm the founder of Mentality and one of the owners. Yeah, so what is Mentality? That's one of the hardest questions we usually have to answer, just because we've got so many avenues we could go towards. You know, yesterday John was talking about building a sports complex, you know, with full basketball courts, pickleball, indoor turf for soccer and football. So, and then right now, our main backbone right now is our clothing. But I mean, we've not only sold, but sold out neon signs, banners, necklaces. So there's lots of different avenues we could go, but I guess the main constant is the sentence on our Instagram bio, which is a culture of ambition. One of our biggest differences between other clothing brands is 70% of our marketing is organic from Instagram. So 70% is Instagram, 30% is probably paid ads with Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, just paid ads in general. So yeah, that stems from us building the Instagram page the past 3 years. At 100,000 followers is when we launched our first drop, and then we just continued building from there. And now here we are 2 years later, almost 2 million followers. Building an audience in general is one of the most important things you could probably do for your business. Before Mentality, I actually started a clothing brand, and it failed within 3 or 4 months, and that was due to lack of audience and lack of creating an actual brand image. And I think just learning from that is where I started using the aesthetics more and building a brand identity. And that's how everyone just relates to Mentality, is with the message and the branding and aesthetics. If I were to start a clothing brand today, I would definitely go into TikTok or YouTube. Me personally, from my experience, I was on YouTube trying to grow my channel. I went onto Instagram. This was back in 2017, 2018, and I just realized quickly how fast and organic the algorithm for Instagram was. And today, it's basically TikTok doing that. So yeah, if I were to start today, it'd definitely be TikTok or YouTube. The key to growth, I would say, is building a brand identity and understanding what audience you're trying to target. For example, Mentality is was at the start I was just posting football content, basketball content, and then we started branching out to more sports and just general quotes in general, such as business and entrepreneurs. So Mentality is more of an athlete's page, and then it just started growing organically, and more business-minded people, entrepreneurs started following. And then the other side of things, Float, it's more of a laid-back page, so I was targeting female audiences for that, and that page is, I'd say, 60% to 70% female. And Mentality is the total opposite, which is 80-20, 80% male. So just understanding what audience you're trying to target and what type of content you need to create that audience. Some challenges we faced growing on Instagram was definitely once you hit the 500,000 to 700,000 follower range, you can't really grow through, I'd say, paid shout-outs or just shout-outs in general. By then, depending on your niche, but definitely for us, just posting these regular quotes, we just started growing through reshares. So by then, hopefully you would build a pretty high quality audience who engages well with your post, and they would just reshare your post on their stories, and it would organically just create a little tribe of like-minded people. So that's what happened with Mentality, and that's what we're trying to do with Float as well. You definitely want to build an audience before you start selling a product. That was one of the first mistakes I made creating my first clothing brand. It was actually a drop shipping brand, so I just wanted to test the audience out. I only had about 30,000 followers at the time, and yeah, it failed pretty big. And then after that failed, I spent about a year building the audience to 100,000 followers, and that's when Mentality came about. Our personal experience growing Mentality, we used paid shout-outs, we used products, sending products out to our friends who own big pages, as well as athletes. And then another thing that drives a lot of engagement is giveaways. So those three things right there is basically the whole basis of our growth. So definitely figure out the right content to use for your shout-outs. Start small, $20, $30 shout-outs. Figure out what works best and then scale it up just like you would with paid ads for your products. One of the most important things we do in Mentality is leveraging our content to create, and not only create, but hype up and market our products. We'll post a quote or some piece of content that goes viral, and we'll test that out, put it on clothing, mock-up, or a bracelet. We'll poll it on our Instagram page. And usually if it's 70 to 90% of a yes on the poll, we will release that product. So it's probably one of the easiest, most cost-efficient ways of testing a product is just if you have an audience, poll it. So how we try to, I guess, go viral with some of our posts is we just have so much volume with our posts. I'll post it on Twitter. If it does well on Twitter, we'll know it'll do well on Instagram. And just for example, our latest drop, Hard Work and God's Work, that quote done very well on Twitter, so we posted it on Instagram. It got over 100,000 likes. And by then we decided to mock it up on a product, figure out if our audience wanted it, and it done well, and we sold out in minutes in some sizes on that drop. At the start of Mentality, we were just posting, most of our feed was actually picture content, pictures and videos. Probably within a 6-month time frame, we just looked through our feed and we could see that engagement was at least 20 to 30% higher on text posts only, just quotes. If you look at our feed from, I'd say 2018 or 2019 to now, it's a totally different feed. It's a lot darker, just black text posts. And that was due to us experimenting, figuring out what the audience likes more. So that's the route we took. And with the audience building, the audience we've built, it's such a wide array of interest from our audience, and just such a high quality audience we've built that we can stray away from clothing if we wanted to. And I mean, like I said earlier, we've sold out jewelry, we've sold out neon signs, and then now we're thinking of opening up a gym here in Las Vegas for extra, streams with Mentality. So it's all about just creating such a high quality audience where you're not stuck in one little box or one little niche of products to sell. If you scroll through your feed on Instagram, you'll just see how generic most pages you follow are, and that's definitely one of the things that has crafted our just crazy belief with our audience. We're posting just different content. We're posting different messages that most people don't hear on a daily basis. And with that audience that we've built, we've just received thousands of messages a month just from a 12-year-old, in an abusive household, or a 30-year-old battling cancer. So it's definitely just a wider range of different people just following for that same message, a culture of ambition. For example, we spend a lot of money in growing our audience and helping our audience just, I guess, manifest our messages a lot easier. We've spent at least $100,000, if not more, on our text club, which sends out millions of messages a month to, we have over 130, 140,000 people on our text message list. So it's a lot of putting money in, but understanding that the money you're putting into your audience will resonate 10x with your revenues. If you guys want to follow us, you can follow us on Instagram at Mentality. My Instagram is Triumphed, and our YouTube link is in the description below. If I had one piece of advice, it would definitely be to just chase your passion. As long as you believe in your vision, just keep going. I had 7 other businesses that failed before Mentality, and I had dropped out of college twice. So just keep going.
What's up, you guys? My name is Roxanne Roncal. I'm a creative strategist specializing in branding and digital marketing. I'm also the co-founder of Proper Worldwide. At Proper Worldwide, we help crystallize our clients' vision, and we also help them tell compelling and meaningful stories on and offline. Today, we're going to talk about social media marketing, specifically how to ideate for your campaigns and how to strategize for your rollouts. So let's talk about campaign ideation. I have one guiding principle with all the campaign and social media marketing that I do, and that is to think connection over promotion. Social media was designed to be social, but after a while, it ended up becoming an avenue of free marketing. So that's what it became, an endless scroll of billboards for businesses. So how can we cut through the noise? This is why I believe it's really important to seek to connect with your audience before you decide to promote. So again, to cut through the noise, you want to create content that connects and is also interactive, and create content that sparks conversations. For example, with FTGU's first collection, one of the key messages is you get what you focus on. A very simple social media campaign that they can ride off with this key message is to, every Monday, maybe they put a sticker question on their story that says, what are we focusing on? Or maybe if you're in their Discord channel and you want to start conversations within your community, it could be a thing that you do every Monday to check in with your community. What are we focusing on this week? So that not only underscores the ideas that are weaved into the product and its collection, it starts conversations and keeps you connected to your community in a more meaningful way. Another key part to ideating content for your social media campaigns is to think of content categories. We touched on this in one of the live masterclasses with FTGU, but let's talk about it again. The next thing you want to do when you're ideating campaigns for social media is to define content categories for your brand. Content categories are basically buckets of content that you post, but think of them as topics of discussion. So maybe, like I said, every Monday you run a poll or you ask a question to your community. That would be a content category, asking questions to our community. Then maybe every Wednesday you can do a stories run of, again, polls, because polls are hot on social media. Creating content categories also makes sure that you are not just posting when you have something to release or when you have a drop coming up. Because like I said, connection over promotion. A few examples of creating content categories would be like Mondays, you ask your community a question. Wednesday, maybe you do an Instagram stories run where it's the latest in fashion and you can do polls that are hot or not, cop or drop, it sucks, it f***s, any of those. And then maybe every Friday you do a spotlight on someone's fit or an outfit grid if people are still doing outfit grids. I'm not really sure. But these are ways that you can post on social media outside of collection dropping this Friday, because like I said, it's very self-serving, and we need to bring the social back into social media. So the next thing we're going to talk about is rollout. This is where the strategy comes into play. So like I said, you don't want to just post when you have something to promote. You want to decide on posting frequencies, you want to decide on what channels you'll be on, and I think as entrepreneurs, we are wearing many hats, and sometimes we may be strapped for resources. So when I'm thinking posting frequency, you want to be realistic. Think if you can only post once a week, post once a week. Make sure it's a fire-ass post. If you can do 3 times a week, that's great too. Another thing you want to think about is what channels do I need to be on? Maybe you don't need to be on TikTok. Maybe Facebook truly doesn't make sense for your demographic. It's really important that you are already in a flow of posting consistently and strategically before you have a drop, so that you can collect data and really know what works for my audience, what content are they drawn to, etc. Okay, now let's talk about the rollout. 2 things you really want to think about here is your posting frequency and what channels you'll be on. As entrepreneurs, we're already doing so many things, fulfilling so many roles, wearing so many hats. So you want to be realistic with what you're able to do with the resources you have. If realistically you can only post once a week, then post once a week. If you can do 3 times a week, that's great too. This is also great to have a maintenance posting flow to have before you ramp up and start posting more when you have releases, because you don't want to all of a sudden be posting a lot when you have drops, because you're basically posting to a cold audience, which is no bueno. Again, it will all be a test. You need to actually post on these channels to truly find out where your engagement is, where your community is most active on, what truly converts and gets a response. So you might find that you get way more sales when you do an email campaign every week versus doing a TikTok every week. So when it comes to your posting strategy and the channels that you're on, just be realistic with your resources and the time you can actually put into these things to make them great, and understand that everything's a test and you'll want to have this data before any sort of drop. One important thing to consider in your social media rollout are hashtags. Hashtags is basically the social media's SEO. Now, when you're using hashtags, you want to keep in mind to use a variety of hashtags, and I'm talking variety in terms of its popularity and scale. For example, you want to use a very general hashtag like hashtag streetwear, hashtag cut and sew, and then you also want to use very specific hashtags, maybe brand specific hashtags, or hashtags that are very specific to that post, such as hashtag Las Vegas fashion, hashtag Tokyo street style, hashtag how to clean garments. Another thing about hashtags is you don't want to OD on hashtags. You don't want to put, I know the limit on Instagram specifically is 30 hashtags. You don't want to use up all of that, because to the algorithm it looks very spammy and like you're a bot, so the reach on that actually might suffer. Lastly, you want to have groups of hashtags on rotation. You don't always want to use the same one. Again, the algorithm will mark this as super spammy and body, so make sure that you are switching out your hashtags. Okay, y'all, that's all I have to cover as far as social media ideation and rollout. If there's one thing I want you to leave with today, is to remember that social media should be social. So before you go and promote, I dropped this, or this shit's coming out tomorrow, think about how you want to start conversations before you sell someone on anything.
Period.
Now, there's a lot that goes into marketing, from the pre-campaign rollouts to the execution of what you're going to do. Now, the key here is to make sure you guys do your research in order to set the right direction and make the most of your efforts. Knowing who your target audience is going to help you in deciding what products you should launch in the market, which brings us into the next chapter, and that is in the product design. Now, when it comes to launching a clothing brand, the last thing you need to be focused on is creating a cut and sew garment for your designs. You don't want to have to create something from scratch that could be readily accessible off the shelf with a blank. So blank t-shirts are essentially products that you can relabel and reuse for your own brand. And about 99 to 100% of brands start in this way. It's very rare that brands start by actually cutting and sewing their own blanks. It is possible now, especially with technology and the integration of other third-party sourcing platforms. But for the most part, guys, don't jump into that until you're really ready to dive into those details. So in order to make your life a lot easier, make sure that you're selecting blanks that are going to be of quality and truly represent your brand. So when it came down to selecting the blank for our brand, we had to choose a blank that was form-fitting and allowed our design to truly shine for our audience. Now when it comes to you guys selecting blanks, there's a lot of different options available, a lot of which the screen printers will have on hand. If you're going to go with a bulk order, if you're going with a print-on-demand option, then that's something that you also have to select as you're importing your store. Some of the blanks that you should consider using is Bella Canvas for their fashion-forward style and their staple 3001T. There was other options that we were looking into, such as Lane 7 that had more of sweaters and heavyweight style of products, but since the drop was more for a t-shirt collection, we had to go more with the t-shirt blank brand. And there's a lot more other resources available in our academy and that we've also included in the PDF description down below, which you guys could sign up for and receive for free. But for the most part, make sure you choose a blank that truly resonates with your audience. You don't want to go with somebody just because somebody tells you to. You really want to choose something that's going to really help sell the product and the design and the idea forward, which really brings us into the designing process of your product line. After you choose a blank or you've identified some blanks that you can use for your brand, the next part is in really designing for that canvas. And with that, we have the man Mike Leisure coming on this next part of the segment, which is going to break down why we created the designs that we created, and hopefully it helps inspire you create designs that are meaningful and thoughtful for your brand.
Hey, what's up? I'm Mike Leisure. I'm an artist and I'm an art director. And in the past, I've worked with fashion brands from footwear to even skate, street, and men's contemporary. And you might recognize me from some of Jonathan's videos on FTGU, as well as the Proper Worldwide videos on our channel where we talk about branding and digital marketing. Today, we're going to talk about graphic design and how to improve them and really lay into the details to make your collections better, and then take those same elements and move them to your marketing. So graphic design, why is it important and what makes it good? I think the issue here is that we have people starting brands who don't know enough about graphic design, and then we also have other graphic designers who may have gone to school for this or learned online. When you look at it as a whole, it's so vast. You can design for posters, you can design for clothing, you can also design digitally and create any kind of content you want to. But when you start to put them onto clothes, I think that there's a disconnect between what people would wear or how you want to express yourself with that clothing and then the actual design itself. For instance, if you design into a square but you're trying to put that on a t-shirt, do I want to wear a t-shirt that has a giant square on it? Probably not. So as we move through graphic design, we want to be able to translate that same language onto something wearable. I think a lot of times when we start designing, we forget about the references and inspiration that goes into these. A lot of times we pull from ideas that are abstract, and then to make them understandable, or pull references that truly accentuate the design itself, as opposed to just pulling random things like deciding what type to use or what textures to use, what colors. And I think we all have that specific thing that we like, and then we need to be able to figure out the most concise and clear way to explain that and then make that make sense as a whole. To solve all these issues, I think what needs to happen is as you start building your brand and you're working that into your collections, mood boards are so important. With mood boards, you're able to pull the references, pull your ideas, and group them into one place, and then already see it come together and then make them cohesive. And then you're able to work back to this mood board and pull ideas from there and then mix them together in a way that actually makes sense. And as you're working on the mood boards, it's so important to really dive into the details of this. It's easy to go on to Instagram and build yourself a board, go to Pinterest and pull some things that you liked, or go to another brand even and start stealing ideas from them. But as you do this, I think you need to look into the details of everything that's happening. So why did they choose that typeface? Look into the artists that they did. Like maybe you see a collection and they did something on Basquiat, or it's like a Snoopy collaboration. Look into the year that it was made. Look into the artist behind that specific piece of art. Like why did they pick that person? And it might have been something like we're doing something super Los Angeles and they're pulling only Los Angeles artists. And if you start to notice those details, you'll be able to create in a way that's so much more elevated for yourself because you're diving deep into the details. Something that's super shallow might just be like, I like comics. And then you start doing color halftones and you start doing like bada boom in the typeface and you're like, that's comics. But if you truly dive into what it was and how the print was being made at the time, you can actually start to say, maybe I can work that into the silkscreen and how it's in different layers. And all those little ideas that you start to unfold and unlayer will then allow you to build in such a creative and fun way, potentially mixing new mediums with old mediums and just creating something somewhat original, because nothing is. But finding those good references will create something I think you'll be truly proud of, other than just knocking off something that you saw. I think the other thing to look at too is creativity sparks in the most random ways at the most random times. And you might not always start with a mood board. Maybe you've already designed 3 or 4 things that you like. And then sometimes it's about working backwards and then figuring out how that collection makes sense. You might scrap 1 or 2 of your designs that maybe you had 10 of, but some of these make sense and some of them don't. I think it's having the clarity and being able to look at all the designs and then put them into something that is understandable, and being like rigid with that, actually saying, this makes sense not just because I like it, but because it fits in the collection as a whole. Another thing is, with how accessible everything is now, everyone's able to download Illustrator or Photoshop, and it's easy for you to actually go on and create something. You could probably do it in an app. There's probably templates out there for you to go in and plug your own brand name into and maybe get a nice graphic going. But some people have the natural talent for that or have the eye for that, and sometimes you actually may be able to build that as well, and you might get better in the next 5 years, in the next decade, to be able to design for yourself. But in the meantime, if you aren't, potentially getting someone else to do it for you will actually be worth your money. A lot of the times it's about understanding what you want and then being able to communicate that to someone to create for you. And when someone is able to come in and bring a whole new set of ideas and expertise into your ideas themselves, I think they can take your collection to the next level. But it's very important as you select somebody to understand their art style and pick someone based off their strengths and how that will complement your collection. If you're really into doing something clean and minimal, but you find a artist who's really into crazy textures and a bunch of other crazy things that doesn't fit, it's probably not going to be worth your money, because you're trying to speak these 2 different languages that are going to be crossed up and kind of convoluted. So definitely do your research on people that you hire, look into their past work, look into what they like doing. And other times too is trying to get someone to do something that they don't like doing doesn't always turn out the best. Some people are able to design in that way that you ask them, but it's not their forte or their like favorite thing to do. So the energy they bring into it and the ideas might not be the same as somebody who loves that, who, like, let's say you're working with clean lines and something that's very precise and minimal. There's a specific designer out there in the world who loves that. They eat, breathe, sleep that, they dress like that, they live in an apartment that's like that. Their furniture was actually picked for that reason. And so that transfers into the design itself. So I think a lot of times with anything, really, whether you're picking a photographer or a designer, it's about picking people who live the lifestyle you want to encapsulate into your brand. When you're outsourcing to another graphic designer or somebody that you need to communicate with to get your vision together, it's very important to be clear and concise. But the thing is, you don't want to be over detailed where you're limiting people's parameters. You want to allow them to be creative, because you pick this person because you trust them to execute your vision. But at the same time, all the stuff that you've worked on up until this point can be used to communicate. The storyboards that you have, the mood boards, all your references can be used in a conversation with them. And that's the other really important point, is to actually have a face-to-face conversation. That could be through Zoom or whatever, but hearing someone tell you your idea back to you in the way that it makes sense to them actually brings so much clarity to the entire project, as opposed to someone just saying, yeah, I got you. So be clear, be concise, use your references, and pick someone you trust. So with FTGU's first merchandise drop, what I did was I came with my own ideas. I was reached out to like, hey, can you design this for us? And I thought it was an interesting project, and I was honored to come through and help out with the ideas that were being created at the time. I just feel like FTGU is in such a monumental growth stage that I was like, I want to be a part of this. And of course, when I came in, I had my own ideas, but then Jonathan and Agaziy brought their own ideas, and it's like, how do we join these together in a way that makes sense? I was able to put together some mood boards for the ideas that I had, and then I looked at their ideas and then meshed them together. What I was thinking was the YouTube videos, the education that's coming out, I wanted it to be kind of analog, and then I wanted to bring in that kind of CRT like chromatic aberration, which tied in perfectly to the brand colors. For the typography, I ended up using the brand typefaces that we actually have in the brand deck, just to keep everything in line with the brand itself, it being the first collection. So the challenge for me was, when they brought their ideas to me, is that it was for a different market, a different demographic that I normally wouldn't design for, but I was familiar with it. And then they had this idea with this wall, of course, having these inspirational words and lines and different quotes. So I was trying to take that and mesh those with my ideas, and I was having a hard time because it was like, where do we go with all of this, and then what makes sense to put on a shirt? It's like, inspirational quotes are cool, you see them online, but it's like, would you wear that as a shirt? So out of the 20 or 30 that I had, I was able to narrow down to you get what you focus on, and tomorrow's never guaranteed. This collection itself was specifically to come out, was slated to come out with the planner. So then when we started thinking about the shirt and the planner together, why did these make sense? You get what you focus on is literally you focusing on what you have that day, what you have that going on that year, and everything that you're planning for. Tomorrow's never guaranteed just means that, yeah, tomorrow might not be there, but if you don't plan for it at all, it could all go to. So you might as well go with your best foot forward, as people say, and really plan for your future. As I mentioned before, picking someone you trust is only one of the boxes to check. Of course, we trust each other. We wanted to work on this project together. But the other thing is that I design for a different demographic, and I work with completely different markets. But we do share this common ground, and I was able to find ideas and things that made sense. The merchandise was one aspect of it, but the other part was designing for this planner. When I thought about the planner, I thought about building, I thought about architecture, I thought about foundation, I thought about from the ground up itself, and what does that mean? And then taking those brand characteristics such as architectural things, directional, and kind of having a clear vision, that's why I was able to choose the inspirational quotes that actually made sense to the entire project. And those being, you get what you focus on, and tomorrow's never guaranteed. And then being able to take those ideas and translate them into graphic design that made sense together. So kind of on the nose, but the you get what you focus on has focus on the back, and it's kind of blurred out. And you actually read the thing I want you to read, which is you get what you focus on. And with the tomorrow's never guaranteed, there's a lot of static, and well, static communicated in a way of multiple graphics layered on top of each other, and not actual static in the grainy, noisy kind of manner. It's these clashing colors and graphics, but then the one thing that you want to see is clear, tomorrow's never guaranteed. And so taking all of that and wrapping it up together with the planner, I felt like made a lot of sense, because you have these ideas that back up why you would use a planner, as well as something that you could actually wear that doesn't feel corny. And I think being able to wear something that's almost like a mantra reminds you every morning when you put that shirt on, when you pick up that planner, why this all makes sense together. Who are you as a person, and why does this work with my life? And that's kind of the direction I was trying to take with it as I was designing. And since this was the first merch drop and collection that's coming out for FTGU, I didn't want to go too far as to alienate people, but I did try to push it as hard as I could. So I introduced some colors and introduced some interesting graphic elements, but we're going to keep it very simple and inviting for people to wear, for if you want to go to school, if you actually just want to go to work that day and wear something slightly casual or just wear it out. I think these are all occasions that allow for this to happen without being like, could I wear this? Is someone going to question me about this at work? You know what I mean? We're not throwing curse words in there. We're not doing any crazy hentai prints or nothing like that. I think really making sure that everything made sense, but we weren't going too far with the graphics. With the Tomorrow's Never Guaranteed shirt, as I was saying, we have that chromatic aberration and the static happening, right? I looked at it and I just thought analog, I thought TV, and then it made me think of the Matrix. And then I just thought, boom, flip that into a cube and it's like this Matrix sort of vibe. And it's like going into a different world, and that kind of like how in the Matrix it's not real, but at the same time you do control your own like somewhat destiny, depending on which angle you want to watch that video. But the Matrix itself allows you to create something in that, whether you're talking about the movie or mathematically, and this being your own world and creating that made so much sense to the entire collection. As I was creating this, I thought about where I wanted the graphics to be, because I assumed that it's not just a summer shirt, and you could also wear this in the winter if you wanted, or potentially late spring, throw on a jacket. And I love that when you do center graphics and you have them small enough, they can still be read through the jacket. I also put some hits on the sleeve because I thought, you know, sometimes people are looking at you from the side, sometimes they're looking from the back, and so you're able to see what brand it is, but it's not so large that it's in your face and annoying. From different angles of the shirt, I wanted people to be able to recognize what the brand was, but at the same time, we have the actual word mark and logo on the back, but on the side, you can read out the full thing that says "From the Ground Up." And again, it's about wearing mantras and things that you believe in, and for someone else to kind of have a conversation started and say, what does that mean? And then you can actually explain your clothes to people, and it further like engulfs you into the culture itself, to be able to speak on why you wear the clothes that you do and why you believe in what's on that shirt, as opposed to just picking up whatever shirt you found at the mall. And having that meaning in that placement and allowing you to work that into your own outfits is such a powerful thing that we leave in the hands of the consumer. And I think it's beautiful what people can do with the clothes after it leaves our warehouses, after it leaves the manufacturers, and when it's taken into your own home, and how you express yourself through these different placements. For instance, I love that this vest is here and has its own things, but I love that there's graphics here down the sleeve, and I think it's really meant for people who like to wear vests. I could be wrong, but I think that each one of these placements was thought out, and they actually understand the demographic of the people that are going to be wearing this. And so with us, I really wanted them to make sense, and we actually got into it about the size of the graphics as well, which is very interesting. As I mentioned, I designed for a different demographic, and I wanted them to be very small because I love small graphics. I love very minimal things, but as we talked about it as a team, we actually had people who worked in retail and are actually a part of that demographic who would actually wear this shirt. And they were explaining how the graphics being bigger actually made more sense to that wearer. So then we actually opted for larger graphics. And I mean, not much, maybe like 150%, 200% larger, and it made sense, and it still works. And I'm glad that we were able to come to a consensus there and create something that is cool and wearable. I'm glad we were able to have this conversation because we came to a consensus that really made sense for the brand. And I think that's such a crucial part to the creative process. And I think that's what it's really about, coming together and getting your ideas to make sense. As you work through the creative process and you have all your graphics and you've already set them on your shirts and you pulled them from your mood boards, bank these because you can actually use them for the marketing process as well in your campaigns, and put them in banners and put them into the email drips that you create to actually speak to your customers and then show them how the graphics work and intertwine with the clothes themselves.
Now, once we got the graphic designs from Mike, we had to decide on the printing method that we were going to go to actually launch this collection. Now, since we knew that we were creating a foundation kit, and based on our research, we knew that we had to bundle it up with a variety of different products at a certain price point, we realized that the best way to do that was going to be through going with screen printing. Now with screen printing, it also allowed us to keep the colors consistent as well as the placement and the overall design aesthetic very consistent across all the garments that we printed on. We knew that we had to ship it out on time in order for it to get to people's homes for the holiday season. Now other methods that we were also looking into at the time was using Applique for their print-on-demand services. The one thing about using print-on-demand that you do need to know though is that you have to have everything available and tested and sampled ahead of time. And for that reason, we're going to be using print-on-demand more for limited edition drops and things that we're going to carry off the website. So anything that we're going to have in stock, we're going to always want to have in stock to control our inventory and our logistics and the overall customer experience. But we will be using print-on-demand for things that are very limited in styles or perhaps things that we're testing out before we go do a bulk run. Now another option that we're going to be leveraging with the limited edition drops is going to be heat transfers. And for this, we're using Supercolor heat transfers, and we're going to be applying them to certain garments and collection drops that are going to definitely be a limited edition, one-of-a-kind type of products. So when it comes to the printing options, you have various available to you guys. Make sure you choose the one that's going to resonate with your brand as well as with the budget that you have for this launch. Don't just go with screen printing because it'll reduce your prices and you have a higher margin if you don't know if that's going to sell. Or don't just choose print on demand for the sake of choosing it because you think that that's going to be the thing that people want. Always make sure that you're looking into the reasons why you're selecting what you're selecting, the budget that you have available, and more importantly, the output of quality that's going to come. So make sure you're working with quality suppliers. Applique is a great resource. Supercolor is an amazing resource when it comes to heat transfers. And just make sure you select a quality screen print supplier in your area that is able to turn designs around for you in order to hit the production prices as well as the timelines that you have in mind. Now that you have your product design figured out, the next part of the process is to make sure that you're not losing any money, and that means that you're keeping track of your inventory. Now when it came to the FTGU merch launch, we created an inventory process to help us keep track of what units we were receiving as well as what stock was going to be available for the launch. We knew moving forward that we were going to be giving out some inventory to certain people to seed them, to help spread the word of mouth, but that also means that we need to keep track of everything that we have on hand when it comes to the day of selling and of promotions that we're going to be launching. So it's important that you create an inventory process for your brand, and this means ensuring that whatever materials or products that you're bringing in from a supplier is accounted for as soon as you receive it. Last thing you want to do is receive a box, say it's okay, leave it to the side, and then not verify if you actually got the units that the printer or that the supplier said that they sent you. You always want to make sure that you're very detailed with the invoices that you're receiving as well as the product list of the categories that are in each box. Take the time to count the sizes. If it's 50 smalls, make sure there's 50 smalls there. If it's 20 large, make sure there's 20 large. Sometimes slip-ups can happen and the supplier may send you more of an extra size, or maybe they just relabeled it wrong and the whole time you did have the right SKUs, but you need to figure out what is happening as soon as you receive it. Mistakes can always be made, guys. This is a human process. So you always want to make sure that you're catching those errors before it comes to you selling and finding out that you don't have a certain size or style. So make sure you're focusing on that as soon as you're receiving inventory. In addition to that, you also want to make sure that you create a SKU number for every product category. So if you have a SKU number, consider applying it to, at the very minimum, where you're going to be placing it on a shelf or in a box. But you also want to consider possibly labeling that on the outside of the packaging or on the hang tag. That'll allow you to keep track of the SKUs, and if you're moving it through logistics, you can essentially keep track of it on the back end as well. And lastly, you want to consider the use of barcodes for all your products. Now when it comes to barcodes, depending on where you want to sell, you want to get the barcodes that are certified for that platform. So the most important and probably the biggest platform there is Amazon. So if you're thinking about distributing your products on Amazon, make sure that you get Amazon UPC verified barcodes. These are available to buy through certain websites, and we've included a list of suppliers in our academy if you're interested in learning more about distributing products on Amazon. So just make sure that you guys consider those barcodes, consider SKU numbers for all of your product categories and item numbers, and make sure that you're doing a proper audit of all your inventory as it's received. This is going to help you make money by not losing money. So inventorying is key. Once you start selling, you need to be able to ship out. So the very minimal things that you need to have available in order to ship on your own are things like a tape gun, a Dymo label, some poly bags, and boxes. Now the reason that you want to have these items is because if somebody buys one item, then you can do it in a poly bag. If they buy multiple, then you can add it to a box. So when it came to our FTGU merch launch, we knew that we had a foundation kit and a box was going to be the best way to ship it out. So we sourced for boxes and we did a custom printing on a box that allowed us to put a planner, a shirt, a hat, a pen, and a couple of custom items that are limited to that foundation kit. So for us, it was important to get a box packaging that allowed them to open it up and get an experience of what it meant to be part of the From the Ground Up. For you, this may not mean getting a custom box, it may just be getting a custom mailer. And if you can't get a custom poly mailer, then at the very minimum, get a postcard. And the postcard should include information about what your brand stands for, what it represents, and what the mission of it is. The idea is to get somebody involved emotionally into your brand in order for them to become a repeat customer, but more importantly, spread the message of what you're trying to do. And when it comes to shipping products, as long as you have the business legitimized through the steps that we discussed at the beginning of this video, you're able to register with any shipping carrier. And that way you're able to select the lowest cost option for the products that people are buying off your store. Now, when it comes to selling products online, one of the biggest issues that you're going to encounter are lost packages. When this happens, you either have to reship a product to the customer or refund them on their order. And either option is a lose for you as a business owner, especially if you're doing sales and promotions around certain holidays or certain brands or collections that you're launching. So with this in mind, I'm proud to be a spokesperson for UPS Capital and its InsureShield shipping insurance product. InsureShield coverage protects your shipments against loss and damage, including porch piracy, and they offer coverage for all parcel and freight carriers. You can either download the app directly on their Shopify store, or you can sign up for a policy on their website. So if you're moving heavy inventory from one supplier to another, by ensuring freight coverage, you're able to protect that investment. So InsureShield is a great tool and option for every e-commerce brand. And the best part about it all is that they offer shipping coverage at a lower rate than what carriers traditionally offer. So it's a really cool feature that's a no-brainer once you look at the rates, as they truly protect your brand and the investment and the time and energy that you'd spend if something gets lost. As we discussed, it's key for you to have an inventory process in order to scale your brand. The last thing you want to be doing is focusing on all the tedious tasks like shipping products out or losing a package. You should really be focusing on the marketing and the sales. And joining us on this part of the masterclass is Agaziy, who has a heavy background in retail and sales. Get ready to take some notes so you can move some inventory.
It's going down. It's going down.
Hey, what's up guys? My name is Agaziy and I'm here to talk to you guys about sales. I have over 15 years of selling merch for various retailers such as G-Star, Vans, John Varvatos, just to name a few. I also have a non-profit clothing brand by the name of TYLV Clothing that has been successful in creating awareness and generating money for the people in need in Tigray. To me, sales is truly like an art form that many people don't think about until the manufacturing of the merchandise is complete. But the sales process starts from the design of the product, goes into the marketing of the merch, as well as the different ways of selling your merch, whether it's in person or digital sales. With the FTGU merch, my first focus is what key performance indicators are we going to track to help measure the success of sales. Most clothing brands fail because they just track the overall profit. Although measuring the profit is a huge aspect, there are other KPIs that will help ensure the overall success of your brand. The first KPI I wanted to talk about is conversion. Probably the most important KPI you must track. Digital conversion is usually tracked for you where websites take the traffic and divide it by the number of transactions. This percentage helps you determine what conversion is. So let me give you guys an example to kind of make sure you guys understand it in a better form. So if you have 10 people visit your site and 5 people end up purchasing your products, then your conversion rate is 50%. Most successful clothing brands have a conversion rate between 5 to 10%. So that's something that I think you guys should be shooting for. Now the next KPI would be called UPT, also known as units per transaction. This is key to understanding if the product selections that you are choosing are able to work together. For us at the FTGU merch launch, we are selling the foundation pack that comes with a planner, a pen, also an FTGU hat that you see me wearing right now, and a shirt. This helps us with the overall transaction amount. It's always more money when people buy a bundle of product versus one shirt. Now, last but not least, the last KPI that we're focusing on is ADS, average dollar sale, which helps you understand the amount of money making per transaction. This will help you understand how to push more high price points that in turn will make you more money. So these 3 KPIs are KPIs that we personally are focusing on to ensure the success of our launch. Now, if you have gotten to a point where you've identified the KPIs that you're looking for, ensure that you are attaching goals. Make sure those goals are SMART goals so that you are able to track the success and you know why your brand is being successful. And that's one of the biggest things when it comes to sales is the analytics piece. So before we dive in a little bit deeper into how we're going to achieve those goals that you set for your KPIs, let's talk about some key tips that every brand needs within their sales. First tip I want to talk about is price point. For us, the FTGU merch, we really looked at where we would label our brand. Is it going to be a cost-effective brand, a high-end, or luxury? You know, nobody will pay Cheesecake Factory prices for McDonald's food and services. Let's be real with ourselves. Now, the product quality, the design, and merchandising must align with the price point you're pricing for your merch. For FTGU merch, we looked at our audience and truly understood what they deemed reasonable to pay for the merch. But wait, later I will definitely touch on how the gift of gab can dictate price point as well. Now, the second tip I really want to give you guys is profit margin. A good rule of thumb is start high and end low. Nobody wants to see something that's $50 one week and then it goes up to $100 the next week. If things are not selling at the price point that you initially have set, you can always do a promotional sale that will bring down the price to your desired price. And then your consumers will actually value that because they feel like they're getting a deal. Everybody loves sales, right? And then the last key tip is managing your expenses. Make sure you are calculating your expenses. Something that you should be thinking about is time versus cost versus impact. This will be super key for you guys. If it makes more sense to do less work and get less profit because you just don't have the time, the money, so make sure you just do print on demand. That might be the best choice for you. The decision is not a decision that is set in stone. As you grow, your brand should be focused on how to increase your profit margins. And that sometimes will be by changing the way you manufacture your products. So with our FTGU merch, we truly understood our audience and also understood that our designs were minimum with minimum colors. So screen printing is the choice we went with, so we would have an increase in profit margins. Now I really want to dive into the different forms of sales. So with your clothing brand, there's going to be digital sales versus in-person sales. Now to talk about digital sales is e-commerce, social media, anything you're going to be doing online. Something that you got to focus on is promotions and holidays. Make sure you really map out your calendar with holidays and events because these things are things that consumers are already accustomed to expecting sales and they are already accustomed into shopping on those days. So these holidays will not only bring you traffic, but this is the best time to really capitalize on those penny pinchers. Another great way to increase your KPIs is by bundling. The bundle method is super strategic and it's a game changer. This will help you get rid of the items that might not be selling as much and you're able to piggyback on the items that are hot sellers. So make sure you're leveraging the bundle deal. Last but not least is your website. This is the form of product shots, merchandising of the product, and then the overall layout of your website. You have to pay attention to the KPIs. If your KPIs are not reflecting what you imagined your sales to be, then there might be something wrong with your website. So maybe changing out the layout, maybe it could be the products, the designs. The question that you have to ask yourself is, why and what can I do to change this? Pay attention to your KPIs. If your KPIs are not doing well, then you must change something on your website. For example, say your conversion is low. This might mean your product shots or your designs are not converting the traffic into buyers. You must ask yourself, like, why? And what can I do to change that? So the next topic we're talking about is in-person sales. Most entrepreneurs want their clothing brands to be something easy, not really time-consuming. This is great for those who are using this as a side hustle. But one of the biggest opportunities with sales is in-person sales. One of the most common and popular ways would be a pop-up shop. You just pop up. This will allow you to do event selling alongside other vendors. You gain some of their traffic, and it also gives you an opportunity to really engage with your customers. It allows your customers to touch, to feel the product, and also to give you feedback on what their likes and dislikes are. So another aspect that might be a little bit difficult And a lot of brand owners do not truly think of this as being a way of really selling their products. It now does kind of marginalizes your profit and makes it a little bit smaller, but getting products into stores. So to get products in stores is a little bit more difficult, but by getting products in stores, it'll help align your brand and product alongside brands that are already solidified. Best way is to target local shops that are either wanting to support local brands or have more of boutique style specialized niche stores. That's definitely a tip that you will be successful on. So now I'm sure for those of you that are extroverts or have experience in sales, this would probably be like literally a piece of cake for you guys, right? But what if you're not a people person? What if you really don't like people? Or maybe this is your first time selling anything. Let me help you and run down quickly what the FTGU sales process is that will turn any looker into a buyer, literally guaranteed. The first portion of this FTGU sales process is the engagement. Number one, ask organic questions. Just have a normal conversation. Find out where they're from, what they like to do, what interests them. These things are gonna be super important for you to listen and retain information because we're definitely gonna use this later on. So the next part of the process is going to be introducing product. Make sure you introduce the product because if you just have an engagement and a conversation, you're just talking to somebody just to talk to them. If you don't introduce the product, you're really missing an opportunity to showcase what you have to offer to that person. So allow the customer to hold the product. Provide them product knowledge, such as where was this shirt made? What is the messaging for the design? Like, why is it important to you? Anything that you feel like differentiates your brand from other brands, make sure you communicate that to your consumer. So the next part of this process, a lot of brand owners are unfamiliar with this, which is called validating the items. So how you validate the items is super important, and it's gonna be a way to strategically ensure that your consumer understands that the product that they're looking at is something that they truly need that fits into their life. So for example, using the questions from the engagement that you offered in the beginning. So let me give you an example. If you ask them where they're from and they told you they're from Canada, and then you ask a follow-up question like, how's the weather like out there? And they say, oh, it's extremely cold. Now, if they have a sweater in their hands, the validation statement should be, hey, I'm sure you will get good use of this sweater in Canada where you mentioned how cold it was. That's a great way of validating the product that's already in their hand, and in their minds, they're gonna think like, man, he's right, I should purchase this sweater, not because it's only a cool design, not because of where they made the product from, but also it's functionable for my life. Now, the next topic is gonna be a topic that is extremely awkward for some of you guys, let's just say, right? So the next topic that we're gonna talk about is probably the most challenging portion of the sales process, which is called asking for the sale. But asking for the sale is clearly just about confidence and how you're asking for the sale. The technique I love using the most is option closing. Example, what size do you wear? The minute they tell you a large, you grab that large, you put the large in their hand, and then you're closing the sale. The next one I love to use is cash or credit. Either they're paying in cash or they're paying in credit. That gives you the ability to really close the sale down, and it provides you less of a pushy way of saying, hey, do you want to buy this? So keep that in mind, option closing. Now the last but most important thing is gaining their information, whether it be an email, contact, phone number, something that you're able to reach back out to them and have them purchase more products. Chances of them taking your products home and loving it and showcasing it to their friends and family is going to be a high one, but they need to know where they can either reach you at or where you can reach them at for the next sales, promotion, or next launch.
Once again, congratulations for getting this far. This is an accomplishment that most people do not get to experience in their life. So by you just taking action and following the steps in this masterclass, you're better off and better positioned to succeed. Now, this also means that it's an opportunity to reflect. You should be taking this moment of launching to reflect on the wins that you had and the losses and learning opportunities that you can do to improve. By truly reflecting on those two things, you're able to do more of what allows you to win and do less of what was causing you to lose. The only way for you to grow is to continue to learn. And for this reason, we created the Ground Up Academy, which allows you to be surrounded by entrepreneurs who are from different walks of life, from different parts of the world, who are all creating unique product lines. It's been amazing to work with entrepreneurs on there, and it's amazing to connect with people like you over this video. So if you're considering on joining, make sure you use the links in the description down below to get started. And now we circle back to the question that was really answered at the beginning of this video, and that's, is it possible to start a clothing line with $0? And to that reason, I say it is, but at the same time, is it really? Are you really gonna be able to make the most of it with no money? You can use print-on-demand options to get started, and if you're not taking and using the steps that we shared throughout this video, it's not going to be something that's going to sustain you or going to be something that grows with you. You'll quickly fizzle out of any kind of efforts or passion that you had towards it because you don't take the time to establish the different aspects that we discussed here. And if you don't take the time to establish the different aspects throughout this masterclass, it's going to be easy for you to lose focus and lose sight of what it is that you're building. It's very easy to get distracted with new things that come up on a daily basis. So if you're truly dedicated to wanting to start a brand, make sure you stay consistent and focused, and more importantly, on mission, as that really connects it all. And for that reason, we created the From the Ground Up planning system, which is a life and business planner. It's not just one aspect of it where you're prioritizing all the tasks that you need to get your business stuff done. It's also, how does it integrate into your everyday life? Entrepreneurship is one of the most difficult roads that you can take as a human being. It will continue to challenge you throughout your entire life. There's never a dull moment, and for that reason, there's no way that a planner can only be for business. For this reason, we created a planner that truly connects your personal life, your business life, and the passions that you want to accomplish in your life into a 12-month planner that allows you to have clarity and focus on what it is that you want to accomplish through clarity questionnaires. It then allows you to map out a 3-year vision, a 1-year goal, a monthly goals, and weekly and daily strategies that you need to take in order to accomplish it all from the ground up. It truly is a blueprint for life that I know that is going to be helpful to the people that are using it. I've been using it for a few years now. It's not the version that we have now though. So more recently we started beta testing it. We got some amazing feedback from people, and they all want the planner. So we're excited to launch this. It's going to be part of the foundation kit, which you guys can also get through the links in the description down below, or by visiting our website, ftgu.store, or fromthegroundup.io, where we have additional resources and suppliers that we mentioned throughout this video. So we truly hope that you guys appreciated all this information. If you're a new visitor to this channel and you're watching all the way to the end, we really appreciate you. That means that you're going to be going far over the next few months. And I hope that you remain in contact with us through our Instagram, as well as through our community groups, our Discord, and everything else that we have available in the Academy. And we look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.